now, a News 10 NBC special report. MLK 50 years later. How far have we come?
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Deanna Duverne.
And I'm Brett Davidson. It was one of our nation's darkest hours, the assassination of civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. After his death, the country made a promise. But how well are we keeping that promise 50 years later?
First, let's take a look back at the unrest in Rochester in the years leading up to Dr. King's death.
Cut it on, okay? Wide open.
It was a time of turmoil, a time of tension that on this day exploded. July 24th, 1964, the first of 3 days of rioting that revealed a rage unleashed. A rage the result of long simmering resentment of the institutional inequities that defined our community. Separate and unequal access to housing, health care, schools.
Most of the minority kids went to two schools, number 9 and number 3.
Schools with far fewer resources. By the mid-1960s, rage boiled over.
What happened?
The Rochester riots put the Flower City in the harsh glare of the national spotlight.
This is Darrell Porter, who's president of the Matadors.
Darrell Porter, then a teenager, remembers the riots well.
It wasn't planned or anything. We never even thought something like that would happen.
But it did happen. Looting, vandalism, destruction. In the aftermath of the riots, FIGHT was born, a community organization that fought for change in everything from housing to hiring.
It's a shame and it's a reproach to allow such conditions to exist.
With a name like Franklin Delano Roosevelt Florence, this minister seemed destined to inspire change. He was FIGHT's founder. The organization created affordable housing like FIGHT Square and FIGHT Village, which still stands today. Meanwhile, the group took its fight to the foot of corporate America, demanding equal employment opportunities of giants like Kodak, Bausch & Lomb, and Xerox. Florence has high praise for Xerox and its founder, Joe Wilson, who worked with FIGHT to create jobs. But he says Kodak was different.
Kodak symbolizes a straight, racist kind of operation.
The group waged a 2-year battle with Kodak. Finally, in 1967, an agreement.
The coalition that has been hammered out between FIGHT and Kodak.
Rochester mirrored the battles on the national front. During the spring of 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. marched with striking sanitation workers in Memphis. The next day, on April 4th, 1968, as King stood on this hotel balcony, an assassin's bullet would kill the dreamer, but not his dream. Martin Luther King wanted to see equal economic opportunities for all people. He advocated for decent jobs and income equality.
So 50 years later, are we there? News 10 NBC's Casey Jones takes a closer look.
In a city with Kodak, Xerox, Bausch & Lomb, migrant workers from the South moved north to the Flower City to get jobs.
This was a place that clearly had employment opportunities, just that they weren't extended to our people.
Discrimination turned into frustration on July 24, 1964. Matt Augustine remembers the Rochester riots making national news.
A lot of people actually refer to this not as a riot, but more as a rebellion.
It's a shame and it's a reproach.
Under the leadership of Reverend Franklin Florence, FIGHT was born, a group advocating for a better quality of life for people of color. In 1968, Florence partnered with Joe Wilson, the CEO of Xerox at the time, to establish FIGHT On Incorporated.
This is our board.
Renamed L-Trex in 1977, Augustine became the CEO in 1976.
It was a part of the idea that this would be jobs, but jobs that also had a certain amount of pride.
22 years later, there is no L-Trex, so where do we stand? The unemployment rate in Rochester for African Americans is 11%. For whites, 4%.
You go back through the years, you will see that the rate for people of color, particularly African Americans, is more than double than that of whites.
Let's dig deeper. In the Rochester City School District, 55% of staff are white. and 27% black. That's compared to the overall Rochester population, where 46% are white and 41% black. In the city of Rochester, 60% of city employees are white, 27% are black. At the University of Rochester, 79% of staff are white, 11% black. And at UR Medicine, 76% of employees are white.
People tend to hire people that look like them. The next thing you know, diversity is out the window.
Both Clark and Augustine agree we've made some progress, but judging from the city's more than 30% poverty rate, we still have not reached Dr. King's dream.
We have some significant problems, much similar to what they were 50 years ago when Dr. King was assassinated.
Casey Jones, News 10 NBC.
When it comes to education, there's still a lot of work to be done to end racial segregation in Rochester.
Plus the struggles people of color have in the criminal justice system. That's next.